The Kremlin has reacted to the United States allowing Ukraine to use long-range missiles to strike targets in Russia, accusing President Biden of fueling tensions. It's also warning the move could escalate the conflict. The decision by the outgoing US president is a major policy shift. It means Ukraine can now use army tactical missile systems known as ATACMS to defend its forces in Russia's Kursk region on Ukraine's northeast border. Russian President Vladimir Putin previously warned the West that he would consider such a move to be a major escalation in the conflict. Our North America correspondent David Willis has this report.
Aftermath of the latest missile attack on Ukraine, Russia's largest in months. This, the city of Sumy, near the Russian border, after a missile hit a residential area, killing 10 people and injuring many more. As President Biden arrived in Rio for the G20 summit, reports emerged of new US measures to help Ukraine defend itself. Authorization from the outgoing leader for the use of long-range, American-made guided missiles capable of striking deep into Russian territory. Potentially a significant development in the conflict, and one President Zelensky has been calling for months.
Today,
many in the media say that we have received permission to take appropriate actions. But strikes are not made with words. Such things are not announced. The missiles will speak for themselves, definitely.
President Biden's decision followed the arrival last month of around 10,000 North Korean special forces sent to help Russia reclaim territory lost to Ukraine in the Kursk region of eastern Russia. Known as ATACMS, these US Army tactical missile systems have a range of almost 200 miles and are difficult to intercept because they travel at such high speeds. President Biden is keen to do all he can to help Ukraine in the little time he has left in office. He'd resisted authorizing the use of American long-range missiles up to now for fear of antagonizing Russia. But with winter approaching and Russia advancing, retaining territory taken in the east could provide Ukraine with a bargaining chip in the event of future peace talks. David Willis, BBC News, Washington.
And our diplomatic correspondent Paul Adams is in Ukraine. He has the latest on what the missiles might be used for.
What we don't know are the specifics of this. We understand that this will be used initially in aid of Ukrainian forces who are currently operating inside Russia in the area of Russian territory in Kursk that they've been holding since August. That is important for them because they are anticipating a Russian counteroffensive in Kursk, assisted by as many as 10,000 North Korean troops any day now. And so the arrival or the ability to use the ATACMS missiles to complicate Russia's planning will be important to the Ukrainians. Whether they are granted the permission to use it more widely in the future, well, we'll have to see. We don't know how many of these systems they have, and we also don't know exactly what the Americans are saying in terms of what they can and can't do with them. It is also possible that Britain and France may follow Washington's lead and grant permission for Ukraine to use the Storm Shadow missile, also to hit targets deep inside Russia. None of these things in and of themselves can be regarded as game changers. They're not necessarily going to change the course of the war in any emphatic way, but I think Ukrainian officials believe that it is a necessary step and one that will somewhat redress the balance of military might at a time when they really feel they're on the receiving end of a slow, grinding Russian advance in the east, and a feeling that Ukraine for the last several months has really been on the back foot.
And that was Paul Adams there. Well, with me now is BBC Monitoring's Russia editor Vitaly Shevchenko and host of the Ukraine Cast podcast for the BBC as well. Vitaly, this strikes me as a bit of a bittersweet moment for Ukraine because they've been asking for these weapons, be able to use them for such a long time, haven't they?
Well, absolutely. I've been looking at reactions from Ukraine, and some people are saying, well, yes, thank you, finally, but it could be too little too late, frankly. Since the very beginning of the full-scale invasion, we've been seeing these red lines, real or imaginary, which have prevented the West or Ukraine's Western allies from supplying more sophisticated, more efficient weapons to Ukraine for fear of provoking Russia into causing an escalation. We had shoulder-launched missiles, then HIMARS missiles, then things like main battle tanks or F-16 fighter jets, for which Ukraine was asking. And initially, was told, no, you can't have that because of escalation. The same happened with long-range missiles. So now it turns out that it's possible to use them, apparently, reportedly, and indications are that they are likely to be confined to Russia's Kursk region, but it's not really going to help Ukraine in the east, or it will be of relatively little help for Ukraine in eastern parts of the country, such as Donbass, where Russia has been making slow but steady progress. Just this morning, the Russian Defense Ministry claimed capturing another village in Donetsk region. So it's a dark and cold winter in Ukraine that we're likely to see for a variety of reasons.
And what do you make of the timing and the argument that perhaps this is about shoring up Ukraine's position should President-elect Trump want Ukraine to negotiate with Russia?
The timing is interesting, absolutely right. There are different reasons being discussed by commentators as to why this could have been possibly given this permission. One of these reasons is that President Joe Biden has only got 2 months left in office, so the pressure is not as heavy on him because of that. Also, the reported permission comes after the deployment of North Korean forces to Kursk region. So this could be a message to North Korea, your involvement will come at a really heavy price. Stay out. Also, it comes after a massive missile attack that Ukraine saw a couple of days ago. So this could be seen as a response to that. And also, it could be part of the Democrats or the Western coalition helping Ukraine before Trump assumes office in January.
And you mentioned there the massive Russian airstrikes on Ukraine in the last few days. We're also just now hearing that a Russian missile attack has killed 8 people and injured 18 in the Odessa region. That's according to the governor there. Just give us a sense of what's happening now in the winter months in terms of Russia's attacks on Ukraine.
It looks like they are intensifying, both involving Shahed drones, other types of drones, and missiles. Just yesterday we had 11 people killed in Sumy in northern Ukraine, just across the border. Now this attack happens in Odessa. The power cuts are back. I'm hearing that people are experiencing blackout again, so Ukrainian infrastructure has been targeted yet again as winter approaches. And that reinforces the feeling of tiredness in Ukraine. There have been reports of various opinion polls suggesting that Ukrainians are willy-nilly moving towards an acceptance of having to sit down and negotiate with Russia. Of course, it's a big question how reliable a negotiating partner Russia is, whether it's going to stick to any agreements reached. But it's true that these daily and nightly attacks that kill a lot of people, they are really tiring, and when it's dark and cold, it has an impact on a lot of things: the economy, the government's ability to govern, and the people's ability to resist.
Vitaly, thank you so much for bringing us your analysis there. That's Vitaly Shevchenko, co-host of the BBC's Ukrainecast podcast.